Welcome back to KC Cares, Kansas City's window on the nonprofit community and the people they serve. I'm Ruth Baum-Biggis.
And I'm Bobby Keys.
And we want to remind our listeners, too, if you like what you're hearing and you want to support what we're doing, you can go to kccaresonline.org and click on Donate.
Oh, yeah.
Because we are a nonprofit, and that underwriting helps us to continue to bring you people from the nonprofit world and the profit world where that intersection is. Like David Oliver, who we had recently, was sharing great information on board development.
Yeah, of course. It's simple. Help us tell more stories. And that's how we do it, right?
Right.
I mean, we can get more stories told and reach more people. And that's what we try and do when we bring on, guests and organizations like KC Melting Pot.
Yeah. KC Melting Pot Theater, and we have the founder and executive director, Harvey Williams.
Welcome.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you very
I'm
much.
so glad that you're on the show because our lives have passed in front of each other in that theatrical world. So this is really fun. All right. For those people who may not know about this special theater company, tell us about Melting Pot. I want to know about how you got your name, too.
Okay. Yeah, that's very interesting. My name is Harvey Williams, and I am the founder of KC Melting Pot Theater. We're located in Kansas City, Missouri, and we actually are the anchor theater at Just Off Broadway Theater in Kansas City. So that's kind of our digs in terms of where we put on our shows. But Melting Pot was began by me in 2013. And to back up just a bit from that, it didn't start out as Melting Pot. Oh. It started out as I had been involved in theater, for many years in Kansas City and Kansas City, Kansas. Martin Chisholm and the MC Players and some other community theaters. Then I got involved in some professional theater in Kansas City. So I've been a theater person for many years. But I also taught. So when I finally retired from teaching, I kind of had all this time on my hands. And so I wanted to do a show I had written a few years ago. And so I decided I'm going to put this show on. And so I just got together with, some actors I knew, and then we'd had to find a place to have it. And the show was called Old School Ghetto Gospel. And so it was a great show. We went up in January of 2013. And after that show was over, that was it. I was totally satisfied. But then the people that just off Broadway, they were impressed with the show and what it did for the space and the bringing the community in. And they asked us if we might consider being something like an anchor theater for them. And so at that time, I had absolutely nothing else in my bag in terms of shows. And so I said yes. Yeah. So why I did that, I don't know. But after that, my wife got involved. Yeah. And she's the business part of it. And she said, well, if you enjoyed doing it and you like the results and people seem to enjoy it, then it's something you want to put some thought into. Sure. And so we came up with the concept of a theater company. And so we started what turned out to be one of the first black-owned professional theater companies, in Kansas City. And so we, when I was going down to, kind of get incorporated, get the names, business titles, things like that, they said, well, you need a name. And I hadn't thought about that, so that's how far into it I was. And so I thought about really what it meant. And what we wanted to do was just have a platform for people who maybe not ordinarily could reach out to get their stories told. New writers, new actors, people who just didn't have the access. And so I thought about it and was like, just what is the community? And I thought way back to my days at UMKC in my world history class, and they talked about the concept of the melting pot and how it was good, bad, and otherwise, so to speak. But the theme behind it is that we're all in the stew together, so to speak. Yeah. And so the flavor is what we make it, whether it be something that tastes good, sour, and that's kind of how life is. Yeah. And so that's where the name came from that concept that we wanted to be representative of everyone who has stories to tell, because we all do, no matter what our background is or our race or religion or whatever. And that's kind of how we got going. And so we opened it up, and we were very welcomed by the community. And one of the first things we wanted to do was to try and address kind of the void of, the arts that was in the inner city. Because, there was some in the schools, but as budgets went, so did some of those programs, right? And so we started doing a lot with not just for actors and local writers, but also for just the developing a local audience that was kind of untouched. They were always there, but they never had access. And so that's what we wanted to do. And that's kind of where the melting pot, came from, the concept of the melting pot.
So if I wrote a script or if I wrote a screenplay, how would I get it to her?
Okay. You would take my email.
Okay.
And you would literally just contact me.
Okay.
And on our website, which is it okay to give away?
Absolutely.
Yeah, promote yourself.
Okay, yeah. On our website, which is kcmeltingpot.com, there are, it's a pretty decent website, and there is a location to be able to submit or inquire. If you're a writer, if you're an actor, or if you're someone who just wants to volunteer or find out more about some aspect of theater, you can just contact us and we will get back with you. So if you were an aspiring writer and you said, I've got this story I think is great, whether it is or not, but you want some feedback from it, you would contact us. We would probably get together and look at it. I would read it and have a couple other members of our creative team read it. And just, give you some feedback on it. And if it was something that really looked great, we would encourage you and probably help assist you in getting that story out there.
Yeah, because that was going to lead to my next thing is, you seeing people, I guess, as you guys have grown, how have you seen the creative community grow within Kansas City?
Okay, well, one of the first things we did, and I had talked, like I said, I was familiar with, and Kansas City has a great theater community. I mean, it's very, very expansive for Kansas City itself, and it was just a matter really of giving people a very simple way to get introduced. Traditionally, there are ways you have a work done and you have to get it read, and it has to go through a workshop and things like that. Well, we kept that concept, but we kind of made it more accessible to the community. In other words, we get actors together who are interested in reading new works and just have table reads. And if those went well, then we'd have a more structured reading, and then maybe get to the point where we do 2 or 3 different acts from the play. And so we would actually workshop it, but on a much more relaxed basis than is traditional, where it takes a lot of time and sometimes money to be involved.
Yeah. I was going to say, how do you get that? Is it a lot of your sales what helps support you, or do you how do you do this?
We're still trying to find that out. We literally we do it. And this is another one of my why I need a business manager, so to speak, which is my wife, Linda Williams. Because my first thing, of course, was people tell you, okay, you want to get established as a not-for-profit because you can then try and acquire some grants and funding to be able to do your work. But I just had this little hard head, and I was more along the lines of I want to make sure the product was worth it.
Yeah.
And so for our first couple of years, we had not applied for a not-for-profit status.
Sure.
Because I wanted to know if people appreciated the product for the product and not just because, so to speak, someone was funding me to be able to, put something on.
Absolutely.
And that meant kind of going into, just going into our own pockets, so to speak. But we did get a lot of just support outright, even though we weren't in the status yet, from different people in the community. A lot of the actors were willing to work, but we had to establish the fact that we have to pay them because if we wanted to be professional, we wanted to be professional.
Yeah. And it's tough. That's why I got out of the
acting. So and now we about 2 years ago we actually applied for a not-for-profit. And a couple of ideas behind that was we were then established. So as we applied for grants and things like that, people knew who we were. We already had a reputation.
Yeah.
They didn't have to stop and say, well, let's look at it and let's see what they can do.
Sure.
They knew who we were. And so some of the funding managed to come along probably a little quicker than it would have if we would have been unknown and just took that approach to try to get funding. So it's still a struggle. We still definitely don't. But now the things that we do, we are, keeping our head above water, so to speak.
Yeah.
So we can always kind of continue with the next thing. But we are dependent on, the grants and, givings that people are able to give to us.
Tell us a little bit about your season and what are the things that you're doing. I know you have some things that are coming up pretty quickly, but you're doing stuff all year.
Oh yeah, we typically do four productions a year. This year, our first production, we kind of had a theme this year of kind of a greatest hits theme. Ntozake Shange, who wrote for Colored Girls, who considered Suicide When the Rainbow Was Enough, died about a year ago. And that was when we, Nicole Hodges-Persley, who is our artistic director, we got together and talked about doing something because we had lost some of the, some heavyweights in the field. So we started our season out with an August Wilson piece called King Hedley the Second, and that was a very, very, very good production. Our next production coming up, which begins December the 5th, is, speaking of colored girls, 4 colored girls who've considered Suicide When the Rainbow Was Enough, and that opens December the 5th and runs through the 15th of December. Then we have our next production is going to be something we're very excited about doing, and that's A Raisin in the Sun.
Wow, classic.
And that's coming up February 14th through the 29th. And so we start our season out with those 3 kind of heavyweight pieces. And then we close our season, because we're going to go into our next season, probably with some newer things, with an original work by a gentleman by the name of Louis Morrow. He was in our production. He's been in several productions. He's also an actor and a writer. He was in King Hedley II, played the lead role in that. But he has a new work called Baber's Tulips, which will be premiering in May of this year. And so that will close out our season for this year, and then we're getting things lined up and thinking about what we want to do next year.
Do you have open auditions, or do you have a core of actors that you usually pull from?
Well, we actually have, at the beginning of this year, we started putting together what we call our collective. Much like a repertory, but it's kind of a self-generating. And so we have a group of actors who we love to keep and cast in our roles, but we also have the platform for new actors to come in, and audition as our season gets ready to get started. So they'll come in and audition, and even though they might not be ready kind of for prime time, so to speak, we have programs available where they can understudy, where they can learn and kind of work the craft. Have classes they can attend about everything from auditioning to scene work and things like that. So we try and be kind of that launching pad and a learning center, a place where the actors can kind of cultivate their craft, learn a little bit more about what they want to do, or maybe what they thought they wanted to do but didn't. But we let people do what they're passionate about. Some people could care less about being on that stage, but they would love to build that set. I think they're crazy, but that's what they love to do.
We love those kind of people.
Oh, set designers?
Yeah, set design. And same way with the technical lights and sound and things like that. And if you find people who are passionate about it, even though you're not, then it makes you look good as an organization.
Absolutely.
And so that's what we try to do. So we let the actors act, the sound people do the sound. If someone likes to do concessions, they do concessions. They love to do that, or volunteers. And so we've developed quite a good family atmosphere in the community about being involved in professional theater.
Wow.
And you somewhat recently, hired your artistic director.
Yes. Nicole Hodges-Persley, who she's currently at KU, and she's very well versed in the academic world as well as the arts. She's written some books about theater, hip hop, music and the arts. And she's also directed and acted, so she's very well versed. And she came to us when we were kind of still fledgling a few years ago, and we developed a relationship with her. We were very excited because of her expertise and knowledge.
Yes.
And so now we have named her earlier this year as the official artistic director. So I don't have to wear the hat anymore because it didn't really fit me that well. And so I can concentrate a little bit more on outreach and developing different programs and things like that. And she's focused in on the types of programs like the season we have this year, and doing things that we cultivate our audiences for. Some things we feel like, okay, we need to prepare them for, because there are some things that are a little more avant-garde and that they're not familiar with. And so rather than just being something they don't get, we kind of bring them along and expose them to different types of theater, and hopefully they develop the taste for different types, not just one genre. And they're able to enjoy, the entire spectrum of theater.
So it's KC Melting Pot Theater.
Yes.
And Harvey told us how they got their name. I love it. That's great. That for the two of us who've been involved in theater off and on, that's what theater's about. I mean, it's a very leveling kind of thing, and you're doing really interesting stuff. Folks can find out about all your stuff.
Exactly.
On your website, which is
KCMeltingpot.com, and you can contact us. You call the numbers that we give you on different things, and people actually will answer.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible!
A lot of times it's me, so
real
don't
people,
have
real people now.
Real people will answer. And so we just encourage people that whatever your question is, or whatever you want to know about, just give us a call, and we'll be glad to talk to you.
Thanks for making us such a robust theater community.
Well, we're happy to be able to do it, and like I said, with the support of people like yourselves who allow us to get our story out there, we hope we can continue and just make it grow.
Thank you.